Welcome to Forbidden Planet TV. Recently at San Diego Comic-Con 2023, I had the pleasure of hosting the Blade Runner Comics panel and chatting with Blade Runner supermind Jeff Conner and two amazing authors, Mellow Brown and Mighty Mike Johnson, all about the present and the future of Titan's amazing Blade Runner comics. Enjoy.
It was Tiny Toons. When I was a kid, the first thing I saw, anything in reference to Blade Runner, was their Blade Runner reference, which shout out to Tiny Toons for even doing that, and then their whole thing of like real kids don't eat broccoli, which is how they can tell somebody who's a replicant and everything like that. And so when asking enough questions to my dad, he's like, "Wow, I'll just show you a stupid movie," because I wouldn't shut up about it. And didn't understand it at all. And so years later, when I finally saw it again, I was in a place where the thing that kind of was pulled in about Blade Runner was that it is a story about identity in that regards, and people discovering who they are. It's always your leads and your villains are doing that at the same time. It's a race to see who actually makes it out of figuring that out, and from there, Blade Runner always makes it really special.
Well said, Will. I think that makes a lot of sense. And Mike, you've got a long and storied history with comics, with writing, with Blade Runner. What was your initial experience of Blade Runner? How did you come to be Blade Runner?
It was I was born in '73, so I was 8 turning 9 when the movie came out, and my parents had all taken us to see Raiders of the Lost Ark, which starred Han Solo. So that was cool. And, you know, there's like Nazis' faces burning off. And then when I wanted to go see Blade Runner, they said, no, you can't go see it. That's too grown up. So that was a bummer. So I didn't see it in the theater. But there was this technology called VHS. Some of us remember. Got it on VHS and just wore the tape out. And even on, first seeing it on TV, the visuals were even on that size were just unlike anything anyone had ever seen. And then living in Chicago, which is a great film town, with great theaters, they would have every few years they would show Blade Runner on a big screen. So if anybody from Chicago's here, there's a theater called McClure Court, which was 70mm incredible. It's where we saw like Jurassic Park and T2 and they showed Blade Runner there, and that was the first time I saw it on a big screen. It was like a religious experience, even though I'd seen the movie so many times. To see it on a big screen is like, it just blows you away. So going way back, and then my old buddy Michael Green was hired to write the screenplay for 2049, and we had written some comics before, and when the opportunity came around to write Blade Runner comics, he said, "Do you want to write Blade Runner comics with me?" And I try not to be too stupid, and I said, and off we go, and then it's just grown from there with the support of Alcon, and obviously Titan has done an incredible job, and now, when Mellow and Kate Perkins came along, it's just made it so much better. My favorite Blade Runner writers, incredible. So yeah, it's been a great ride, and I just want to say thank you to everybody here who has read and supported the comics, or even if you haven't read the comics yet, you just love Blade Runner. Thank you so much for the support. There's so many ways to spend your entertainment dollar these days, and to have you picking up the work and reading the work, and I'm going on, but my rant will be over in a second. We got to thank our artists, Andres Gunaldo, Marco Lesko on the colors for our book. You can see it there. I mean, Andres is so good at everything you could ask for. Like, Blade Runner has those quiet, emotional conversations, and then it has just bursts of action. And then Marco's colors just feel cinematic. They're not just sort of like simple day glow colors or something, or trying to create lens flares or something. They're just subtle but really powerful colors. And you can see here, obviously, we're going with Neander Wallace, going with that kind of gold palette, even though it's not necessarily the same rooms that you saw in 2049. We've tried to give characters their own sort of color palettes, and doing a great job there. So, yeah, thank you, artists.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we should give a shout out to David Leach.
You know, I told him I would, and I sort of buried the lead. David Manley Leach is our incredible editor who keeps the ships sailing, the trains on time, etc. And he is back home in England right now, but with us in spirit, and he deserves all the credit.
And you resource these artists. They're,
Yeah. I mean, true story about David Manley Leach is he's one of my oldest friends. I've known him for 35 years. He's insanely talented. He's currently at home in England because he has an exhibition of his family's artwork on in Ealing, which is the movie capital of London, where I happen to live. 3 generations of the Leach family in a museum, in a living project museum, a cinema museum. And he's insanely talented, and he's also the creator of the greatest independent comic book I've ever read, which is called David Leach Conquers the Universe. And the first issue of which is David going one-to-one with Godzilla, literally one-to-one with Godzilla. So if you're ever looking for an independent book to pick up, pick that one up. He's an incredibly talented guy, massive champion of all the creators that you see here and the artists that you've been blessed to put together.
Yeah, and David, I'll go ahead and tell you this now. I brought some variant covers, and if you want to ask a question after you ask the question, come up and select the variant cover. And you can just see from the variety of like the covers that we have and the different styles. This is an amazing one. Foil one. David is really the one that goes and hunts for the artists to do the covers every month. We have 3 or 4 covers, and they're just incredible. So yeah, he's the engine that drives everything.
and he's a massive Blade Runner fan too.
Yeah,
Not just-
yeah.
Colossal Blade Runner fan, and has a very, very long story, which I won't tell now, about how he first came to see Blade Runner, but it's worth hearing it from the man himself. We've all got those stories, right?
Yeah.
On that note, so Mike has been doing an amazing job with his amazing artists on the cool Blade Runner books, which you know I love. And the current one is Blade Runner 2039. As we mentioned, Mellow and Kay Perkins just did an outstanding job with Origins. And on that note, the world of Origins is folding out into another series, which we're introducing here called Cascade. And on that note, we have a special guest, another creator. So I would like to call to the stage Ceda Xiong right here. Give a round of applause.
Hi everyone, my name is Ceda Xiong. I'm very excited to join the Blade Runner family and universe here. I was just like to say that one of the reasons I really got excited by Blade Runner is it's one of the few sci-fi properties where you do see a lot of Asian representation, especially Anna Ashina. I was really excited to sort of give her an origin story worthy of how epic and dramatic her stories are in the later series. So I hope that both Mello and I are able to do that in the next series.
Wonderful. And before we get into talking a bit about that, and what I wanted to assemble you all to talk about, was if we could just take a step back and go through the genesis of the Titan Blade Runner universe so far. So could you give me a rundown of what you've been doing, Mike?
Yeah.
And then we'll move into what Mellow's been doing.
Yeah, so it started with, after 2049 came out and Alcon wanted to build out the franchise, we were talking about doing an ongoing, or not an ongoing, but a maxi series about a new Blade Runner. We didn't want to just rehash the movies. We definitely didn't want to do like a Deckard book, but we wanted to revisit the 2019 time. So coming up with a different Blade Runner was a priority, and we wanted to have some representation. We had 2 white guy Blade Runners up to that point, so we wanted to see a different story, a different person with a different relationship to Los Angeles, different origin within the city, and someone that approached replicants in a different way. If you've read, spoiler alert, but if you've read 2019, you know that Ash starts as a Blade Runner that then sells the organs of the replicants she kills for cash. So not something we'd seen before, and we wanted to see the evolution of that character to recognizing the humanity of the replicants to the extent where in 2029 and 2039, her partner, Freyza, is a replicant. Freyza is the character in 2049 who is missing an eye and comes to talk to Kay towards the end of the movie about building an army. So we thought, well, that's a way to touch on the movies without, as Michael says, sing karaoke and just do the old stories again, but find ways to weave it into the movies. So that's sort of the evolution of the Ash series, which is wrapping up in 2039. And then there was Jeff. I don't even remember how Origins came about. I think there was just an enthusiasm for doing a second book.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We experimented with doing 2 books at the same time because the first one was doing really well, adding a second title. And so it just seemed more logical to go before the film, so we see the beginnings of the Blade Runner division. And since we have that sort of 9 numbering protocol, that's how we got there.
Yeah, that's right. And then Kay Perkins and I had worked on other comics previously, and again, like, just wanted to get different voices into the creation of these books. And Perkins was friends with you. How did you and Perkins meet?
Me and Perkins met on a really weird Apple show.
An Apple show.
Yeah, it was, I am on strike, I cannot talk about it.
Oh.
So I can't, like, that was good promotion, but it was strange. You could probably find it if you look up a TV show that is 80% audio, because I don't know what the show is like that. But yeah, we met there, and we just wrote a lot of weird things within that series. And then she was like, want to write synthetic people, realizing who they are as people, and then running away before the main character shoot them. I'm like, yes, I wanted to do exactly that. And so yeah, and then we went off on Origins, and Origins has been like, I'll put it like this. One of the things I've always loved about different franchise, I'm really not about franchise right now. But what was it like within Star Wars? You get a lot of stuff where you can see like Andor that defines like the rebels in a way where those guys in the suits that don't look as cool as the stormtrooper suits are actually cool within a very specific way. And I want to see them all the time now. And I wanted to add that context a bit to different things within like just both replicants as well as Blade Runners themselves. One of the things that always got me, and it was a long discussion that we had as well, was in regards to Blade Runners are the villains of their own franchise.
Yeah.
And specifically because their job is like a race of people realize that they're enslaved, they escape, and they shoot them on the spot. So how do you root for any of these characters going forward when you continue to make stories? And creating the character of Cal Monroe and putting him in this position where he sabotages every Blade Runner going forward, so that way they have an option, or like there is a chance that there's a little bit of rebellion that sparks in them, and then that kind of maneuvers the way you kind of see like the rest of the series and a lot of stories. Because as of right now, most of the stories we see about Blade Runners, we see them on like their last day or their worst day, and when they're kind of like realizing things about the system. So being able to lean into that within this series, and then kind of even just giving them cool stuff, like now the jacket explains why a replicant can punch one and just explode because it's lined with something that helps them out. It's just a lot of cool stuff like that. And Origins has been a big ride, and going forward with that, we have a sequel on the way. We have a couple sequels on the way, and we have been wanting to kind of explore a big question. If you're at the last Comic-Con, I know you probably heard me mention this before. Why isn't there another company making replicants? Why is this still like why is Apple the only one making phones in this particular universe? And we're going to get into that in this long saga. It's like the Cheshire saga, if you will, as to like this other syndicate that is making replicants, but they're realizing that like they're basically the best weapons you can use in war. And they're using them for all the reasons that Tyrell isn't. And we're going to be extending that out within 2 series. One of them with a writer who can't be here today because she lives in Japan, and that is for Blade Runner Neo Tokyo. And we're going to get into that in a bit. But that is also going to be running and leading into the big project that is like this massive, is basically taking the cyber noir of Blade Runner and putting in like a little bit of grindhouse, and then every volume will be a different genre. And it is just this huge colossal story of like the first team of Blade Runners that are going up in a war against a syndicate, which is essentially a Blade Runner war. And that series will be called Blade Runner Cascade, and you right now to see it.
It's been pretty exciting because I think we're really exploring what happens when there's 2 massive companies that are trying to take over the world. So we kind of experience that in our daily life, right? So it's not surprising that it makes for really good story fodder as well. And I think the thing that really attracted me to these stories, we are really trying to build the humanity of our Blade Runners in their unit, how they relate to each other, their sort of buy-ins emotionally, their buy-ins as a family, but also their buy-ins into the world. So I think we're going to exploit all of that and really like flip it on its head. You'll get a lot of surprises, a lot of twists, and I think what we're doing is really making you feel for the Blade Runners, but then also see the bigger picture too.
She's gonna make me cry.
That's my plan.
We're really leading into the whole concept of like how Blade Runners are, and that at any moment they could realize like I am like murdering innocent people regularly. So getting into storylines where it is what happens if they leave their turn gun towards a human, what happens when they start doubting who they are and they start to question each other within the team, like who's gonna crack at any moment, who's gonna flip out on the job. And it becomes like this larger story of like, cause we've explored heavily the like replicants realizing who they are and what that results in as they run out into the world. What happens when a Blade Runner does that? It's a lot scarier, and it's really insane, and I'm really looking forward to y'all seeing it.
Well said. Yeah, please.
It would be really cool if we saw a young Ash in that series. Can you talk about that?
So, yeah, definitely the star of the Blade Runner comics up until this point has been Ash. And for the first time, we're actually going to see the origin story and the 2019 to 2039 stories collide by having young Ash was actually recruited by Cal Moreau after the initial origin story. And so what you're going to see is the days that led her into actually becoming a Blade Runner, as Cal is in this place where he's noticing that there's that little bit of spark, there's that little bit of rebellion, that like she's gonna break the system in her own way at some point in the future, which is the reason why he hired all these people. He hired them all because they will crack. And he just doesn't know how it's gonna happen. And so having her in this place where she's like developing like this big team, this family, we've got so many new characters. We have like my particular favorite one is an assassin that works for Tyrell that isn't supposed to crack, so they just have a villain on the team, so they occasionally just like have to whisper that there's an assassin next to him. But having Ash, you can be like, she's like a sister to me. It's like a very funny, but yet very cool, very stylish relationship with having this very young lady become this very violent warrior that we know by the time 2019 hits.
I think what's kind of cool about her is because she joins while she's so young, and she's mentored by all the different Blade Runners that are already in the unit. So you see how the older Blade Runners have influenced her and molded her, and that gives you a lot of traction into the stories in 2019 to who she actually becomes. So there's going to be a lot of growth, but also like a lot of betrayal, which is like what happens. But I think that's the most exciting part for me, is that you'll see this character really being shaped by her environment.
I mean, as a fan, I can't wait to, I've only got an inkling of the story and I can't wait to read it. Mike, what plans have you got within the other side of the Blade Runner?
Yeah, so 2039 is going on right now. Issue 5, which we've seen some pages from, is up, and it's really bringing the story from 2019 of Cleo and Isabel full circle, and it's going to end up with a final confrontation between Neander Wallace and Ash. And there's a reason, like obviously we know that Neander Wallace is around in 2049. We haven't seen Ash in 2049, and this will explain reasons for that. But don't assume the worst. I mean, go ahead and assume the worst, that's fine. Because it might be worse. But yeah, so we had our first 4-issue arc where Cleo comes back to Earth and reunites with Ash. And then in the second arc, we've introduced a character that we jokingly call Rash, as in replicant Ash, which is an Ash replicant that has been created by Wallace to hunt down Isabel as well. And in issues 5, 6, 7, 8, you're going to see Ash meet this younger version of herself without any of the physical ailments that Ash has lived with for her whole life. And then running along with that, almost as a second protagonist in the story, is Love, who we met in 2049. And we're seeing, and actually Mello, you were an enormous help in figuring out, where Love's mind would be early on, because, and you see some of this in 2049, where she sort of considers herself Neander Wallace's favorite child. And we're going to see...
She's so weird. She's the weirdest thing in that movie. She's so interesting.
Yeah, and we were lucky that we could use Love in this 2039 book, 10 years before the movie, to show that she was actually the first replicant Blade Runner. Kay, Ryan Gosling's character, is the one that we met in 2049, but Love was the first of those. And why is Love no longer a Blade Runner in 2049? We'll see why in the 2039 story. The other fun thing that we're going to show in 2039 is an older Cal from Origins. And this is actually a variant to issue number 2, even though Cal is not in the issue, and that's my fault, because the covers need to be decided long before the scripts come in sometimes. And I decided I'm going to save Cal for issue number 9. So, but Cal shows up early as a little preview of his appearance in the series, and then we'll put him on a bunch more covers later on. But that'll be in it, actually, and you and I need to talk about exactly how that is going to go down. This little inside baseball, I need to figure out where Cal's head is at in 2039. We'll figure it out. That'll be a really fun reunion later for Ash. Later after having been through all of this, and finding out what Cal's been up to too. So yeah, that's where 2039 is going with and ultimately in the last 4 issues, Ash coming face to face with Neander Wallace, and them having a showdown.
Thanks for that, Mike. And before we get into some of the bigger, more conceptual issues related to Blade Runner, if you will, something I should mention is that if you don't know already, Mello and Mike are doing a signing at the Titan booth between 2 and 3 p.m. today. And let me get this absolutely right. Mike will be signing the SDCC exclusive foil edition of Leslie Lyric's The Lead variant of Blade Runner 2039 issue 5, and we'll have plenty of Blade Runner. Yeah, the full version of that will be at the booth 5537 for these guys to sign, and plenty of Origins for Mello to sign also. Now the thing about 5537 is
I'll sign it. I don't have any one to go in.
something you should know is we've been at the same booth for many years at San Diego Comic Con, but our numbering makes no sense. So we're at booth 5537 Do not, however, go to road 5500 because you will not find us there. Our booths are in a very strange place next door to the entrances of the hall. So we're at entrance C to the hall, the exhibition. I can see a lot of nodding faces. So you walked all around the convention centre like I did the first year I came. Sorry about that. 5537, and we're just almost directly opposite where Diamond are. So that's where you find us. There's a big floor to ceiling banner with a lot of Blade Runner stuff on there, a big picture of Jamie Lee Curtis. Very different to this. But that's where these guys are going to be at 2 p.m. Simon is fine.
What did Jamie Lee Curtis do?
Jamie Lee Curtis gonna be there?
Wait, we've got a panel with Jamie Lee tomorrow.
She's not gonna be there.
She's not, sadly, I asked her, but she said she's a bit busy. But she's thinking of it. She's a huge fan of your mutual work on the title. Well, goes without saying. And so that's how you find it. And so back to Blade Runner. I rewatched recently on the approach road to having this conversation with you guys one of the numerous cuts of the movie by Ridley Scott. And I'm a big fan, by the way, of the original release version. That's one thing. With the voiceover. Yeah. I like the voiceover personally. I like all the tweaking around it. But I was really, really struck by the amount of parallels and foreshadowing there are in that movie versus the society that we find ourselves living in today, and the way in which human beings interact and relate to it in this present day. Could you guys talk a little bit about that and what your personal feelings are?
Yeah, can I jump in? I saw something recently for these TikTokers, and they're like stream of consciousness. People like feed them ice cream or little. People know what I'm talking about here, and they like respond like yum yum, ice cream, good, and it was just struck me as Blade Runner. Like it's so surreal and a level of engagement with a medium and a personality that just felt very odd, but also futuristic. And I could just see them. If people know what I'm talking about, you could see them plastered on a giant building in the Blade Runner time. Just that kind of. Just blows your mind. And I think, to your point, we're seeing our society just sort of get more Blade Runnery as we go. And it's not always blaring on the headlines, it's just in the small things that we have. Obviously, this is like the year of the AI panic, but I'm thinking about like Joy in 2049, and that doesn't feel like, it's gonna be here a lot sooner.
It's a weird year to write Blade Runner.
Also, that Blade Runner is at its heart also about labor. I know that seems like a stretch, but it is definitely about a labor force that a society at large wants to take for granted and cannot. And like we're sort of in the midst of dealing with a labor movement in America, and so we're all thinking about what work means. Like, what does it mean to work? Does it mean that you only have value when you work? Because in the Blade Runner universe, replicants don't have value just because they do the work. So I think that's a interesting discussion.
Yeah, I agree. Even the essay that, I think that was like Ridley Scott had on his mind at the time. You can see Alien is like, well, he took a bunch of Amazon workers and then threw them into some alien eggs, and then just see what happens. The company's like, this is all R&D now. and for Blade Runner, it's like those workers try to escape because we make the perfect kind of worker to put tons of people out of a job and made a dystopian place because of this. And what happens when they start to rebel? He's like, well, they're expendable, and dealing with the humanity of those individuals that provide that for the death. So, Blade Runner is really optimistic, and so the thing that I've really tried to lean into with this particular universe are like how people are fighting back and rebelling, but also finding joy in the process. So that way, you actually want to keep buying more issues of it, because there's so much. That I even love that we were able to do in Origins, where like they were able to have this neighborhood that was built on these different communities, and the communities were built on the backs of communities that exist right now within like while we're having rough times, where like they're still doing really, really dope because of how they function together. So like that area that Cal is from is sort of like Golden Guy in Japan, while at the same time it's made of like all these different cultures. And I grew up in like a neighborhood that was kind of built around those different cultures, where you'd have like different families from different backgrounds, and all the kids would come out and be like, I had this for dinner, everybody got a plate, and we just kind of like swap it out. Like a little bit from everybody's plate, and we go back to our homes, and got a little bit of everybody's home process. So when you have like a Wallace or a Tyrell come into your neighborhood and try to change things, you have this community where people are talking to each other. They're able to fight back and push back against this thing, and that's why they still exist within this world. So being able to kind of have those conversations where like you can read one of these books and you're like, I feel like I'm one of these people in this world. And like I feel like I know how it functions, and the characters are from these places and are able to fight back. So even while this corporation is doing what it's doing, you're just like, no, we're gonna keep chipping away at it, and you're gonna fall eventually. And I'm having fun talking about the story of like how it eventually cracks.
I think that's very, very interesting. And we've got to that point where we're looking about, oh, wait a minute, look, Jeff Conner wants to say something.
I do not know.
Oh.
No, actually, well, we're talking about all this stuff. I just do want to shout out for the Black Lotus comic, which I'm a big fan of. I know the series might have been divisive for some viewers, but I think what was created is of real value, and I like extending that story with Hell out in the desert by Nancy Collins. And I think you should all check it out. I don't know if the redheaded sticks out here.
Amen and well said. We've got about 15 minutes or so for some questions. So if anybody's got any questions, please step forward to the mic. We've got some Blade Runner goodies here. Mike Johnson has got some Blade Runner goodies for you.
I apologize. I have a quick question. The person there in the fatigues, were you here last year? At the end of the panel, could you come see me for a moment? Thank you.
Your boy conf test, don't worry.
Hi guys, I wanted to ask, as creatives, what you guys do to get into the zone ritualistically, or listening to music, or what puts you in that kind of, cyberpunk, futuristic world?
Just because I know right away. Whenever I write the script, I put on the 2049 soundtrack because it starts with, well, actually, I think 29. There's different versions of the original soundtrack, but the 2049 in particular, partly because I'm a softie and my friend worked on it, and so I'm like, oh, I'll put that on. But it starts with that bass beat, and that's like, okay, like it just snaps into it. And there's a track on there called Seawall that is my go-to, and I put that on and listen to that, and then I'm just sort of in the zone.
Does anyone listen to lo-fi hip-hop music to chill and study to? That's my preferred channel.
If I'm trying to figure out anything about a dystopia, I open Twitter. And that's really inspiring, but otherwise, yeah, I always lean into like, I love it when characters actually want something and they're running towards it, not the negligent, like, why am I, like, how did I get like this? But like, they have like a major goal that they want to get to. And I take a day to think about what everybody wants, and then we sit down and we talk about it, and then we make sure they kill each other and other people for it. And yeah.
How about yourself, Jeff?
Well, I listen to trip hop when I'm working. But I was about to say my philosophy towards editing, the creatives, as it's called them, is a large part of the creative process is solving problems. How do you get a character out of or into a situation? And so the more problems I can cause for the writers, the more creative they'll be. So that's how I do my job.
It's really interesting the amount of times that lo-fi and trip hop come up as answers to this question. And it's a kind of it's a semi-universal thing. One of the things I do on the side at Titan is I edit crime novels, war crime novels, and I usually find that listening to Buddy Rich puts me in the right place for it. So yeah, right in the heart of it. That's a great question, brother. Thank you very much. Can we get some goodies? Sir, please.
Hello. Sadly, I have to be the one to admit I have not read any of the books yet.
Okay.
I'll go down to the panel.
Just about to get one or two.
Yeah, I'm also going to go down to a booth and buy everything you guys got. Recently, I've been in a Blade Runner kit, probably because of events in the world. My question is as you are getting license from someone else and things like that, were you given a Bible of things that you could and couldn't do, or do you have an internal Bible that you have to follow?
There is,
That's a Jeff question about
there
the
is,
Muslim.
we do have guidelines.
Okay.
And some of them are due to licensing that dates back to the original film, and other ones are just having to do with what's happening in other areas. But it's not like the Halo Bible, which is like 600 pages long. So
It's tight.
The
Like,
weird thing is, we have to adhere to the Halo Bible, which is weird. We can't contradict it.
that Halo Bible is big, but we do, yeah, we have an internal document, but it's, they're guidelines, and, these guys know what's up, it's not like they're gonna do time travel or something.
Yeah, and we publish a ton of licensed comics at Titan, and you have Bibles of every property that it's encoded into the contract that you have to adhere to them. Sometimes I think what you're touching upon, and we won't go into specifics about, but you get very interesting legacy clauses, which is X, Y, Z actor as likeness cannot appear in this comic book, and it was 40 years ago when they filmed the park. That stuff all does happen. Yeah. Thank you. Please come and get us. Sir, fantastic costume.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Thank you. Is there any, or are there any plans to explore the universe post 49, or is that something you can talk about?
I don't know what you mean by that.
Oh, after the year
I think,
2049.
like after 2049, any projects?
Well, there's this TV show that's supposed to be happening, cut with the strike and everything's sort of on pause, and so I'm not gonna comment on that.
Sure.
But that was said in 2099.
Do you interact with the other media as part of those guidelines you mentioned earlier?
But, that we're exploring how we might lead up to that. It's ongoing discussion, but the projects that we have right now, that's a full plate. So,
Can I think of I have an interesting way to kind of explain what you're dancing around without either of us getting in trouble. You're going to hear the synopsis to the new show, and you're going to know why he can't answer you right now. But it'll happen.
Pretty clear later.
Yeah. Fair.
I'd just like to say that, we're talking about AI and all this kind of stuff. Have you seen this trailer that's on YouTube right now? Blade Runner 1929?
No.
It's like Blade Runner if it was Metropolis. Blade
Oh,
Runner
wow.
by Chris Lang.
Are we gonna sue them?
You can see it online. It's
Okay.
really amazing.
I will say that even though Ash is wrapping up in 2039, we'll be starting a new project set closer to the original movie that we're codenaming Blue Marvel that will center a replicant and their point of view as the protagonist. So imagine if the original movie focused primarily on Roy and Deckard was the supporting character. I really wanted to do something that was like, it's called Blade Runner, but the story is really driven by replicant. So stay tuned for more on that. And thanks for your comments.
Thanks, brother.
Awesome.
Great costume once again. Come and get some stuff.
Thanks.
Sir.
So with the new Blade Runner game coming out, taking place between 2019 and 2049, have there been any talks with the developers of bringing the comics to the game and telling the story?
Actually, we were just talking about that.
I really don't know.
I worked with the game designer, or not the, one of the game producers, Joe LaFavi from Genuine, and we did go over the core rule book quite extensively, so it would conform with our idea of what the Blade Runner is. And you do have to make certain allowances when you're in the game space, and we realize that. And so it's canon adjacent, but we don't look at it as strict canon, it's gaming canon, if we want to get semantic about it. we're really happy with how it turned out. I think Free League is a great company, so we're nothing but energetic about it. So the idea of cross-pollinating or borrowing some stuff that's in there for a version of a comic or having it have some kind of nuance or influence, yeah, we're totally open to that.
And to even follow that up, I want to. That particular year is my second favorite year in the entire Blade Runner timeline, where like all the data has been like just destroyed about all the replicants, and they get like scattered, and all the Blade Runners are like, well, I'm out of a job, I guess. And so it's such a weird year, and I've always wanted to play around in that year and to kind of reveal like Blade Runners out of work start to show who they actually are, which is really scary. And while at the same time, you don't know what replicants are going to do at that time. It is just a Wild West. So yeah, I would love to continue working where that game is going.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much.
Great cosplay.
We're racing towards the end, so we maybe got time for one question, maybe two, quick. So, sir.
Yeah, my name is Brian Carter. I was coming to say that Blade Runner is actually the two movies are my favorite two movies in the world next to Indiana Jones sagas. My daughter is really into the Blade Runner series too. As a high schooler, she was very moved by the depth of the storylines of those. That being said, in this series, there was hints of off-world activity throughout the two movies. Are you guys going to explore any of the off-world activity in the comic series at all? You answered my first question about the replica-centric, so off-world activity is something we haven't seen a lot of.
Yeah, we touched on it in the 2019 series when Ash and Cleo go off-world. But I think with the off-world, we think a little bit goes a long way, where when you hear things about C-beams glittering and the Tannhauser gate, and your own imagination is better than anything we can put there. And I think, and Jeff, correct me if I'm wrong, but when it comes to it as a franchise, we tend to focus on more of the kind of urban noir aspect of it and leave the off-world to the imagination. It's not to say we're not going to see it again. We did it with Ash and Cleo, but I think, yeah, a little goes a long way. And I mean, I'm right there with you. I would love just like a comic called Blade Runner Off-World, and it's just incredible, but that's my thinking.
Yeah, in regards to Off-World, a little inside baseball here. So Blade Runner Tokyo is on the way. It was originally planned to be a volume 2 of another story. And, but Tokyo is awesome for reasons that I'll get into another time. But like Tokyo doesn't work like LA does in a very funny way, where LA kind of looks like is an idea of how LA looks, while Tokyo is actually like this protopian place that is actually kind of like really creepy underneath. It's the whole thing. But the two main characters in there are a veteran soldier and a replicant of the opposite side of the war that we've seen people who come back from it currently in the Blade Runner universe. And that original volume was the story of that war, while also kind of telling why these two actually have like this very cool relationship, why they went MIA. And basically they escaped a suicide mission, and they're facing the ramifications of that going forward. We'll be able to talk about that and the things that people saw, what they went through, how they felt, etc. Within that particular series, if we're allowed to show any clips of it, it's up to him. So it's up to him.
Thanks so much for your question. Come and join us. And we've raced towards the end of this fine panel of these extremely creative people. So you have been watching Jeff Conner, Mellow Brown, Ceda Xiong, and Mike Johnson. Let's give them a round of applause.
Thank you all for coming. We've got some variants if you want to come up and grab one. We've got a few here.
And we'll see you at booth 5537 for the signing at 2.
If you're enjoying watching Forbidden Planet TV and you're enjoying watching us talk to the world's most interesting and accomplished filmmakers, authors, artists, musicians, creators, subscribe right here. See you soon.